Big Talk is a member of Odd Pods Media and the ASAP Network.
What's going on? This is Big Talk. I'm Dalton Shetler with Sam Sprunger. Big Talk, it's where we have college sports with a Midwest perspective, blue collar and blue blood. Sam,
Yes,
we're
sir.
into the late stages of April. How we doing?
I still don't know what to do with myself, Dalton.
I'm a bit the same way. I kind of walk by the mirror every day and the self-reflection, I'm like, no college basketball, no. It's still an adjustment period. It takes a while.
There's still things happening, but it's so small and minute that it's a trickle now. It's not the flood that we're used to. And pretty soon, once football kicks off in full swing, that basketball, stream gets dry, and then the football flood floods open. So there's a lull. It's the calm before the storm, and it's about a month long, I guess, isn't it?
Well, yeah, pretty much. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the things happening, like with the NBA playoffs and some of the Big Ten influence and impact in it. Because you are kind of like us and you're just aimlessly wandering around with your sports fandom, like maybe this can help usher in something that you tie in from the Big Ten. But I find this interesting, Sam, is I used to watch the NBA a lot because, look, basketball is my favorite sport. To me, it's better than football. It's better than baseball. It's better than everything. I just love basketball. And what I have found, because now I'm so busy during the regular season with college basketball, men's and women's, I'm not watching as much the NBA, and the NBA playoffs are on and I'll watch it. It is a stark difference, and for me, not in a good way. And this is what I find funny about it, and I kind of wanted to scratch your brain. Is there's plenty of people that will watch the NBA, don't watch college basketball. When March Madness comes around, they'll put on March Madness, and I've listened to numerous podcasts of those people saying the college basketball product is just so bad I can't watch it. Meanwhile,
I'm watching the same game.
Meanwhile, I'm sitting here like, I can't really get into the NBA product as much. So I thought that was interesting that whatever one you've been watching, that it feels like the bridge and styles of play between those two levels maybe are at such a high contrast, maybe higher so than it's been before. Not just in terms of talent, but in terms of just style and how aesthetically it comes off the page. And look, I love watching college basketball. I'm not so much a fan of the NBA as much anymore. But let me be very clear. I think the NBA has gotten to a point where, for me personally, the players are too good. Like, I think they've gotten too good at the game of basketball to the point where one-on-one is efficient enough. Taking long contested jumpers is efficient enough, and people are so good. Like, I think that's what's created the stark difference. But I was curious kind of what you thought.
To me, NBA is boring, and I don't want people to take that in the way of me saying it's no good. It's just, it's more of the one-on-one. They're going one-on-one. Everybody else just moves out of the way and lets them go. That to me is a pickup game. That it's more individual pickup games every time they're down the court, because it's one person, whoever's got the ball, they might pass it off, but there's one person that's going to basically run their play for them. And whereas and don't get me wrong, there are some programs that might do that in the NCAA, but it's more of a team concept. You've got to have not necessarily set plays, but more of a motion that includes more than just one player. Occasionally you'll get the ISOs, in college, but to me, why I kind of went away from NBA is, for one thing, during the regular season, it is very, very apparent that it does not matter to most of those players.
Right.
And that bothers me. That's your trade. That's your profession. If you're not great at defense, how about you work on that a little bit? Become an all NBA defensive team player, or whatever. It just seems like they're so disinterested in the regular season that we'll just wait until the playoffs hit. Well, what happens if you don't care enough and enough of you don't care enough that you don't make the playoffs? Then all of a sudden you're scrambling at the end of the year. And it's like, if you'd have just put half the effort in 70% of your games than you did, you wouldn't be in this position to have to win and get in. And, but the main reason why I still like, even though it's a business, and especially now NIL's in, there's still a semblance of school spirit, and you're playing for something more than just yourself.
And there is a play of purity. Again, like during the March Madness, like we talked about, like Fairleigh Dickinson, like the way they played, the way they moved together, that was such a throwback of what made all of us love college basketball to such a deep level. But yeah, no, I found that interesting though, that if you're somebody, it doesn't seem like there's too many people that kind of are able to ski both lanes anymore. Like somebody either really loves the regular season of college basketball and hates, not necessarily hates the NBA, but just can't quite get into it the same way, or vice versa. And I found that pretty interesting. But since we're in the middle of NBA talk, Sam, I figured we'll go ahead and go through this list now. That way, we'll move forward a little bit with football a little bit, because we do have some spring football. I think half the programs in the Big Ten are in action this weekend, and also the NFL draft is coming up next week. So we'll be touching on some of that. But since we're talking about the NBA playoffs and whatnot, Big Ten alums, there are 24 Big Ten alums in the NBA playoffs.
Now, is that active for the last game that they played, or is that including ones that weren't allowed to play the last game that their team played?
Like Draymond Green? Yeah, it's including Draymond. So I did this by NBA team, but maybe Big Ten fans would find this more helpful from going by Big Ten school alums.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So let's try pivoting here. Illinois, Myers Leonard is a member of the Milwaukee Bucks. So Myers Leonard is in the NBA playoffs. And to my count from CBSSports.com, going through every single roster, that's the only Illini in the NBA playoffs. For Indiana, Victor Oladipo and Cody Zeller are both with the Miami Heat, which isn't that funny? How good they were together for the 2013 Indiana Hoosiers, and now they're together in Miami again.
Well, and they started in complete opposite directions and then have made their way back to one another.
It's destiny. When you know, you know. Thomas Bryant's with the Denver Nuggets.
Which as much as I hate IU, I have always liked Thomas Bryant. I like the way he works. I like his style of game. I really do like him as a player. I really do.
And now I will only have one memory of Thomas Bryant. Like 20 years from now, when somebody says the name Thomas Bryant, there's going to be one thing that pops in my head. And that's when LeBron James is breaking the NBA all-time scoring record. Thomas Bryant is in the middle of the paint, demanding the ball, posted up saying, "Give me the ball," as LeBron is passing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for the scoring record. It's one of the funniest photos ever to me. I love that memory.
He's posted up. Come on, feet.
Yeah. You see everybody in the crowd has their cell phone out. They're taking videos and photos of the moment. LeBron is doing a fadeaway, and there's Thomas Bryant demanding the ball in the middle of the paint. It's just perfect.
Centers be centers.
And then Eric Gordon's with the Clippers. So that's the Hoosier contingency, again, by my count.
Hoosiers out there.
Yeah, there sure is. Let's see. That's four Hoosiers in the playoffs. For Iowa, Keegan Murray with the Sacramento Kings.
Is there any chance he's not the rookie of the year? Because think about this. They earned that number 4 pick. They really did. They earned it. Like they had to get, they didn't even get drawn. Only the first 3 teams get drawn in that lottery. So they were at the very least, or the very worst, number 4 in the draft, and they were the number 4 pick.
So I was going to say, because the guy's face popped right in my mind, but I believe I was struggling to come up with the name. Like I said, I haven't watched a ton of NBA this year, but I believe it's Paulo Banchero.
Yeah, he's done
the star from
very
Duke.
Well.
Yeah,
he's done very. But where's the magic in the playoffs?
No, it's fair. And I tell you what, the Kings aren't just good, but like offensively, they grade out like historically great. Like one of the greatest offenses that's ever played the game.
And it's not just Keegan, but to add somebody like that and then have him doing what he's doing. Again, I'm very much if you're really close on your stats and stuff, what's your team doing?
Mm-hmm.
And Murray, his team's going to advance. They're going to win their series. I truly think that.
They're only up 2-1. Sam's calling the series done.
I don't care. I mean, seriously, the Lakers struggled it is the Lakers, right?
Warriors.
The Warriors struggled in the third game to win the game and had to have a perfect game from Stephen Curry. You know, to me, yeah, they lost, but they've held their serve. They won their games at home and they lost the first one in San Francisco. Well, guess what? If they're the better team, which to me they have been all year, I'm guessing anyways from looking at, because here's the thing, I don't watch it, but I kind of follow in the box scores as they say. And they have been a better team than Golden State. So I think they will win that series. And even if they don't, good Lord, they were up 2-0 on the defending champions.
Yep.
You know?
Well, and I think it's important to mention the Kings do have home court advantage overall, and the Warriors were abysmal on the road this year. And so that plays into part of it. Yeah.
You know, Golden State's going to have to steal one in Sacramento, and they didn't look good in the first 2 games in Sacramento. So I don't know that it happens. I just cannot bring myself to say, yeah, I think Sacramento's going to, and who am I? I don't care about the NBA as much. But still, Keegan Murray is the point behind this whole thing. He is an amazing player. We knew this last year. We talked about it last year. But for him, not always does it translate into the NBA. We all know that too.
Yep.
Or we wouldn't talk about why Sam Bowie was a horrible pick for the Trailblazers instead of Michael Jordan. I would still say they made the right choice personally. But the point being is you know, it translated very, very well. And he's, at least for 1 year, is probably the steal of that draft, even though he was the 4th pick.
And so you got Keegan Murray and then Luka Garza. That's a name. That
is he actually on the roster? The last I knew, he was in the G League.
According to CBS Sports, he is with the Minnesota Timberwolves. So 2 Hawkeyes are.
He might
in
be the
NBA
number
playoffs.
12 player on the roster, but he is on the roster.
Like I said, I just went through CBS and jotted everybody down. So this is the collection that I have from that. Let's move to Maryland. Maryland has Bruno Fernando with the Atlanta Hawks. The Terps also have 2 members on the Kings. They have Kevin Huerter and Alex Len. So 3 Terps in the NBA playoffs. Let's move over to Michigan. Duncan Robinson, of course, with the Miami Heat. Karis LeVert with the Cleveland Cavaliers, which what a career he's had.
Yeah.
And then Jordan Poole with the Warriors and Moussa Diabate with the Clippers. So 4 Wolverines. It's pretty good. So 4 Wolverines are in the NBA playoffs. From Michigan State, obviously Draymond Green with the Warriors. Max Christie with the Lakers, of course, finishing up his rookie year. And then you have the Memphis Grizzlies, who might as well just be Michigan State. They got Jaren Jackson Jr. and Xavier Tillman Sr.
What about Bridges? Isn't Miles Bridges on New Jersey?
No. So he's actually
that's the wrong guy. Sorry.
Bridges has a suspension to serve, and then he'll be back in the NBA reportedly, assumably, this upcoming year.
Wrong. I only went with last name, and I was like, no, that's not right. As soon as it came out of my mouth, I said it's not right.
I imagine a lot of people mix that up. I imagine a lot of people mix the Bridges up because they're the same draft class.
Yeah,
like that's
the problem. Like they came in the same time, you know. And sorry, confusion set in. I'm old. Okay.
For Minnesota, Amir Coffey is with the Clippers, and that might be the only gopher in the list. I believe it is. Isaiah Roby of Nebraska is with the New York Knicks, so the Huskers have a member in the NBA playoffs. No Northwestern Wildcats. I'm trying to see if we have any Penn State players. We have Lamar Stevens with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Ohio State, D'Angelo Russell is with the LA Lakers, and Mike Conley's still at it. He's with the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Goodness, he needs a walker most of the time. I love him. Don't get me wrong. I love watching him play. He's still effective.
Incredible.
But it's just like, haven't you been around a minute or two?
It feels like that now. Also, Dwayne Washington Jr. is with the New York Knicks for the Buckeyes. So the Buckeyes have 3 members there. For Purdue, I'm afraid to tell you this, Sam. I don't think there's a Boilermaker in the playoffs.
No, I know. I was going to say, of course, let the IU fan. Oh, you can't get shut up. I don't care. I don't care about the NBA enough to worry. But at the same time, we're talking playoff teams, So I mean,
you seem a little defensive, Sam. It's okay.
Not at all. Honestly, I don't care. It's just the whole. Oh, well, we can't win in March. You can't play in the play. Oh, shut up. Just shush.
Sam's just hoping Zach Edey comes back and gets ready for the next season.
That's all. What? I honestly, with his announcement, I still think he's coming back. Only because he maintained his college eligibility. His declaring.
I think it's important to note that, when he announces he's going to go to the draft but maintain eligibility, that's the move that any great basketball player should be doing in college basketball. Yep.
It doesn't matter how great you are, you should still maintain your eligibility, because what happens if during those workouts you blow your knee out and then all of a sudden we're not drafting you?
Yeah, and if you are somebody who has even a sniff at the next level, go get the feedback.
Robbie Hummel did it back in the day. This went back.
Well, and this is the last, I want to say 4 years has been the evolution where you can declare for the draft and decide to come back. Like that, it used to be once you said, I'm going to the NBA, you were gone.
Robbie Hummel was in that window where you could declare it, but you had to decide one way or another before like a certain deadline.
Yeah.
And there were no workouts. There was no combine at that point. Or if there was, it was brand new. And he declared, went and, did workouts with teams or whatever, got the feedback, and then decided, okay, it's not good enough for me and I'm coming back.
Yep. But
I think that's what happens with Zach Edey.
You should absolutely go get that information. So we'll see if Zach Edey decides to come back to Purdue. I think the rest of the Big Ten saying, go ahead, stay in the big league, big fella.
Well, and he may go the Kofi Coburn way and stay and leave. And that's okay. And I read an article by Greg Doyle from the Indy Star. He said, it was on the day Edey declared, it said, if he doesn't come back, Purdue may be in better shape for a Final Four run next year. And I get it because of what's coming in that way, but at the same time, I think Zach Edey is probably well-rounded enough of a human being that it's one of those that, if he has a certain place in the draft that he wants to be drafted by, if those prognostications only have him in the late first or early second, that may not match what he wants.
Yep.
And he may come back. So honestly, I think, like I said, the way he left the NCAA tournament did not make him happy. And I think he would love to stick it to everybody that kept up with there's Purdue can't win, the Zach Edey's only tall, he got National Player of the Year because he's tall. You knew that, right? But the whole thing, I think it's a driving force for him. So if he's not at the point in the draft where he wants to be, I think he comes back to try to stick it to people.
And I do think on the other end of that, it's important to note, although Zach Edey, tremendous. I mean, double machine, more than 20 some points, 13 rebounds, whatever. 7'4" guys that don't necessarily move on the perimeter. That's not the way the NBA is going. That's how the NBA was 20 years ago.
Which is why I said Kofi Coburn, because he's almost the same style, just shorter.
Correct. So the NBA, I'm curious the way they perceive Zach Edey, and that might play into some of the maybe different prognostications as you're talking about. But also, I want to mention, to my count, no Scarlet Knights or no Wisconsin Badgers. So as I was going through alphabetical order, if you're one of those teams waiting
Johnny
to hear,
Davis didn't make it to he didn't make it in the playoffs. That's what it was. I was like, wait, he got drafted. No, he didn't make the playoffs.
So
sorry.
That's the 24 members from the Big Ten in the NBA playoffs. I thought you had something to say.
No,
sorry.
No. I would have said something just to have something to say, but I don't have anything to say.
Fair enough. So maybe if you're like us and you've been kind of wandering, not really sure what to do with your fandom, there are NBA games, and maybe if you got a couple of guys from your school,
read a book.
Yeah. You talk to people, make friends.
Yeah. You're so pulled away from everything during the sports seasons. Maybe you use this as your social season where you go out and actually let people know you're okay and all that.
Some of us are scared. It's been too long, Sam. So like Howie and Benchwarmers.
What is that blazing ball in the sky?
Oh, man. All right. I tell you what, we'll take our first quarter break. When we come back, let's switch over to football.
I love that it works so far.
Here
knocking on wood.
Here in the second quarter, we wanted to talk about some of the different things happening with Big Ten spring football. Yeah. So if I believe correctly, Illinois was scheduled to have their spring game yesterday, and they pushed it to today, Friday, because of some incoming weather that was getting ready to hit in Champaign. So I believe they're having their spring game today. Meanwhile, tomorrow will be Minnesota, Nebraska, Purdue, Wisconsin, Iowa, and Northwestern. So half the Big Ten is wrapping up their spring activities this weekend. Quite a few already have. I think 5 programs already have wrapped up. Michigan, Michigan State, Penn State, some others. And then I think even Ohio State. Yeah, Ohio State's wrapped up as well.
I was going to say, I saw the replay on the Big Ten Network yesterday.
Yeah,
they've had it.
Confirmation.
Yeah.
In Indiana, I believe they've already wrapped up. And coming up next weekend, I believe, to be Maryland and Rutgers. Those are the only 2 for the 29th weekend. But as we said, about half the Big Ten wrapping up their spring activities this weekend. If you take off the Boilermaker hat, which I don't know, is that a Boilermaker hat there, Sam? Or what is that logo? It is?
Dark.
Okay.
It's my Purdue Pete.
Okay. So keep it off for just a moment while I ask you this question.
It's dark enough in here that it doesn't show up. Do I need to take my shirt off as well, Dalton?
We're not going to ask for that because we do have a visual angle. But for half the Big Ten taking place this weekend, you took the Purdue hat off, but you have Minnesota, Nebraska, Purdue, Wisconsin, Iowa, Northwestern, Illinois. Which program is the most interesting to you with the Purdue hat off? Because we know what
Iowa.
the answer is with the hat on. Iowa, okay. And
J.D.
why?
McCarthy is coming into Iowa City to...
Whoa. Cade McNamara is coming into Iowa City.
Sorry, I was thinking, yes, I apologize. Thank you for abruptly... Cade McNamara transferred to Iowa, going into Iowa City. He is going to be the savior to the Iowa offense. I'm almost guaranteeing you, anybody I've talked to has said he's going to make a difference. And I don't disagree. He's won a Big Ten championship. He was the starting quarterback. So he has the talent and the ability to do it. And you've got a coach that has motivation because his contract now says he has to hit certain benchmarks as an offensive coordinator, that I think there is way more motivation for that Iowa team, especially on the offensive side, that the West Division could be in big trouble because of that. So if I had to sit and watch an entire spring game, that would be the one, because I want to see what that offense is preparing to do. I know they're not going to give it away, but you're going to be able to see some progression, you would think, in their offense. So,
well, and I think a lot of this upcoming year with Iowa, because you laid some of the context, and for people who don't know, Brian Ferentz, the offensive coordinator for Iowa,
and in my opinion, should have been let go last year.
He's got the contract clauses now. He has to hit certain marks,
I think they have to
benchmarks.
average at least 25 points a game, I think is one of them.
Correct. Throughout the year, or else the job is gone. And so much like you, I kind of thought, well, you throw in Cade McNamara, maybe that helps change things and evolve, moving on from Spencer Petras. But Brian Ferentz recently talked to the press, and from the answers, what I could glean is that there isn't getting ready to be any new evolution of the framework of Iowa's offense. If you glean the press box or the press conference answers where he says, if this ends up being my final year, I'm at peace with that. And a lot of answers of that tone. My point just is, I don't believe the Iowa offense is getting ready to evolve or undertake some change. It's just if the framework or the vision that Brian Ferentz has had for years, it's just if it can excel with Cade McNamara instead of Spencer Petras. Like, I think that's the only thing we're looking at. I don't think we're going to see anything groundbreaking just gleaning off those answers.
As stubborn as Kirk Ferentz has been throughout his career at Iowa, I am shocked that it wouldn't be more of his way or the highway for his son and be like, look, I understand you have strong convictions, but you need to do some changing in this offensive scheme or you're going to fail. I think it would probably be the hardest thing for a dad to fire his son from a job that he was working under him. And probably the reason why he wasn't let go last year in the middle of the year. Because Kirk Ferentz is very stubborn, but yet he's not stupid. And so it's like, look, we're going to fire him now, or you need to come up with a very creative way for us to be able to keep him. And Kirk Ferentz came up with something very creative to make sure that Brian still has a job this year, and then say, look, all you got to do is change it a little bit. He's not asking for a complete revamp. And every time I've heard Kirk Ferentz talk, he's been talking that there was going to be a change in some aspects of the scheme in their offense. But if Brian Ferentz is refusing to do that, he very well may be in his last year. Again, standing by your convictions, great. But at some point, you've got to maybe realize that, the definition of insanity is trying to do the same thing over and over again and get a different result. Well, guess what? You've got to do a little bit of evolving in order to, keep your job. How many people are going to hire an offensive coordinator that couldn't average over 13 points a game?
Right. Well, and so I just typed into Twitter the name Brian Ferentz to read some of these quotes, just so I can show you exactly what I'm talking about. Chris Hassel on Twitter tweeted out a bit from it, and he's with CBS Sports. He tweeted out that Brian Ferentz was asked if he had a message for the Iowa fans who are running out of patience with the offense, and he said, quote, "I don't have a message to them," end quote. If we stroll down a little bit further, Scott Docterman of The Athletic had asked Brian Ferentz about if he'll approach things differently this season with the 25 or more point per game clause. And the quote that came back with this being attributed or reported by David Eckholt, who's with 24/7 Sports, he says, quote, Brian Ferentz does, "If this is my last year as the offensive coordinator at Iowa, I'm at peace with that," end quote. If I go down to Elliot Clow, who is with Rivals, he tweeted out and reported that Coach Brian Ferentz says, quote, "He doesn't know that there are any notable changes to the offense going into this coming season," end quote.
Stubborn for stubborn's sake. He gets it from his dad. I'll give him that much. He does. He resembles his dad, but at the same time, I've got to think that, his dad loves him, or he would have had his butt out the door after, a few weeks last year, or even prior to that, because the offense was starting to go downhill before last season. He just didn't see it being that atrocious last year. But, you would think that his dad would be like, look, we love you and all, but you've got to make some changes here, or there's nothing I can do. And he's not going to cut his nose off to spite his face.
And the only thing I can think of is Brian and the rest of the Iowa coaching staff, administrators, whatever, are sold and bought on the idea that the system Brian Ferentz has can work and will work.
Who?
And if you're reading and parsing tea leaves, it's that you throw in a new quarterback.
One player cannot change it completely. That's why the reason why I was excited or wanted to see that is because I wanted to see what changes Brian Ferentz did as well. If he's not changing anything, putting one cog into a broken system is not going to fix the system. It's just not.
Iowa is going to fight that theory with trying to toss Cade McNamara out there and see if it isn't just the wonder fix all. I mean, that's how they're approaching this.
I am so disheartened. And I'm not even close to an Iowa fan at all, but that's disheartening.
Let's circle back to the original question where I asked, out of the 7 programs wrapping up spring activity this weekend, again, Minnesota, Nebraska, Purdue, Wisconsin, Iowa, Northwestern, and Illinois. I said, which one are you most excited to kind of see?
It's not
and
that
for
one
what
anymore.
Reason? I was going to say, so new answer. Okay, so if it's not Iowa,
Nebraska.
where are we moving? I think that's where I am too. Now, I do have a little bit of intrigue with Wisconsin as well and what they do.
Me
with
too.
Fickle.
But at the same time, Wisconsin has the breed of still bringing in athletes. Nebraska has a historical name, but they have been a dumpster fire for the past 5 years or plus.
See, and this is what's interesting about it is,
but they've got horses. That's the kicker.
Well, and that's the thing. I talked earlier this week with Joshua Perry with the Big Ten Network a little bit, and Nebraska came up, and he said for whatever reason, people have this idea that Nebraska doesn't have talent.
Oh no, they got it.
He said that's not the case. There is talent in Lincoln. It just isn't working. So you throw Matt Rule in there. You keep some of those pieces along. You're starting to shift a culture, but I'm really interested to see, especially in the Big Ten West, what Nebraska can do in this first year with Matt Rule.
I have heard that, people not happy with the Nebraska hire because, Matt Rule, he couldn't even do it at Carolina. He just had a disconnect with the players there. He's not going to do it in the two things. A, he's coached in the college ranks and did very, very well. So he does have experience of how to operate in a college world. He's also coming from a world where the players make more money than the coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's going into a college world now where players can make a lot of money, maybe not coach money, but make a lot of money. And all of a sudden, when money comes into play, there are personalities that need to be dealt with. He just spent 3 years in the NFL dealing with
3.
Those attitudes, those personalities. He's got something built in. Whether he did a great job or not, he's still got the experience to where those guys will at least have an understanding. He might know how to handle the college kid who's making a lot of money because he did coach well in the college ranks, and now he has experience with people that are making money. He could do very, very well in Lincoln.
And I keep seeing every time I suppose what I'm saying, every time I see Matt Rule, my brain does word association and thinks of revitalizing Baylor.
Yes.
What that program was to where Matt Rule took it. Like, I can't help but give him credit for resuscitating that program every time I think of that name. And to think that, I mean, what it is in Nebraska right now isn't close. Their basement's not even close to what Baylor was. To think that he couldn't turn a program around with the resources available at Nebraska, the fan support, the booster.
About the name in general.
Yeah.
Because no matter how dumpster fire-ish they've been, they still have a historic name.
Mm-hmm. And
a lot.
Nebraska, look, I'm not necessarily saying they could go on and
you're gonna call it right now, aren't you?
No. But I because I want to make sure I lay the qualifier here. I'm not saying they're going to be walking year after year and beating Ohio State and Michigan and just dominating everybody. But Nebraska's a bit of a sleeping giant here.
Yeah. With
the resources at play, the tradition, the history, the fan support, everything. Like, the fact that Nebraska hasn't been performing at nearly as high a level as it should be, like, it just takes a couple of changes, and maybe Matt Rule's the change that's needed to get Nebraska to its potential.
And worst case scenario, in 3 years, if he doesn't pan out, they fire him, pay him off, and they get another guy that they think is going to be a home run. It's trial and error, And if Matt Rule,
Nebraska fans don't want to hear that right now.
I completely understand that, but they thought it was a no-brainer with Scott Frost, and look where we are.
I did too.
With that. Well,
I
a
thought
lot
it was
of
a great
people
hire.
did. I thought. I still don't think it was a bad hire. My thought is not everybody's designed to go back home.
Yep.
And when you have those expectations on you when you're going back home, yeah, they try to give you as much of a leash as possible, but then you get to the point where Nebraska wasn't doing anything close to, I mean, what was it? The year before, they lost 6 games all within 7 points.
Mm-hmm.
And last year, that wasn't the case. They weren't losing their games close. So there wasn't progression like everybody thought it was. And when you go home and you suffer like that, you're going to get fired in the middle of the season.
There's a lot going on there. You're absolutely right.
But honestly, I wouldn't be shocked to see Nebraska compete for that West title. I would not be shocked.
The West is open again. The West every year is always a treat to see who comes out of that mess to play either Ohio State or Michigan in the Big Ten championship game. And if I allow you to put your Purdue hat back on,
it's not going to be Purdue this year.
Are you excited about any element of Purdue football, though?
I'm always excited just to watch Purdue. Here's the thing. Go ahead.
Let me specify my question. What element has you most excited besides just the school and fight song and everything going out there?
I want to see how the defense improves.
Okay.
Because their new coach is a defensive guy. He was the DC at Illinois, and Walters is now the head guy. What is he going to do to revamp a defense that wasn't horrid, but they could have been a lot better? What's he going to do to make that defense a stronger side of the football than anywhere close to what it was last year? And honestly, until I'm proven differently, it's going to be the stronger side of the ball right now. I mean, don't get me wrong. The offense has weapons, but they lost so much from last year that it's going to be a rebuild around Maccabee and some other aspects. But that defense is going to be what has got me most interested about Purdue.
Well, and I think it's important to note, too, I thought the job Jeff Brom was doing on the defensive side, because, again, like the context here for people who might be new to Big Ten football, Purdue has always been known as kind of the basketball on grass in the Big Ten. Like,
thank you, Joe Tiller.
The Joe Tiller days 2-3 decades ago, like that was always the philosophy. And Jeff Brom got it to a point where it was still a pretty pass happy team. And when you're such a high volume passing team, your defense is going to be on the field a lot. Your defense is going to be put in some difficult positions. But you did still see this program pump out George Karlaftis, who now plays with the Chiefs. I mean, you saw some really high-end development on the defensive side of the ball. I just think defense was such a not high priority for so long at Purdue. But I'm excited to see what Walters, if he can take that another step as well. I think it's a good point.
And that's the big thing is, like I was saying, they weren't an atrocious defense with Brom. They weren't horrid, but like you said, they were put in situations where they were giving up points because they had a short field they had to defend. And, at the very least, it was getting a field goal or heaven forbid, they weren't great by any means. They weren't one of the elite defenses in the conference by any means, but they weren't the dregs of the conference either. So that's where I kind of fall back on, hey, what's he going to do to maybe notch them up further, because he's a defensive mind. You've got a lot of rebuilding on offense, so he's going to try to put people in place to make those improvements there. But his ultimate goal, obviously, or at least that's where he was with Illinois, is concentrating on the defense.
And I think it's important to note here, too, the timetable, Sam, that Walters was there for a short amount of time because Bielema was just in his second year, and Walters had this defense clicking on all cylinders. And, I mean, there's going to be Illini defensive players that are going to be hearing their name draft day Thursday, like first-round draft picks from Illinois' defense. And I think that should make you excited as a Purdue fan, what Walters could do in West Lafayette, because he got it rolling in Champaign in just a short amount of time. So, but I tell you what,
looking at
go
the
ahead.
first round of the mock draft, the one I pulled up,
Save it for the third quarter.
There's an Illinois guy in the top 10.
Okay, let's talk about it when we come back from halftime. How's
All
that?
right. Yes, sir. Let's do it. You are listening to Big Talk, hosted on Spotify for podcasters and StreamYard.
Hey man, it's me, Kevin Smith. Everybody knows at the root of any good relationship, any relationship worth anything, is the only thing that matters between two people. And I'm talking about television. That's right. That's why you should listen to Married with Television, man, which is a podcast by my friends Shannon and Jamie, I call her cat ears, about movies and TV that they have loved for decades, man. You listen at marriedwithtv.com or anywhere you get your podcasts. They are proud members of the Odd Pods Media Network, man. Married with Television.
Hey, this is Grab and Brisket Podcast. Join us every Monday where we talk about the latest trends in barbecue, interviews with world top pitmasters, celebrity cooks,
like Wee Man from Jackass,
and musicians.
like Rich O'Toole.
So check us out. We do beer reviews, barbecue fails.
So many fires.
Dude, a lot of people just burn their houses down for no reason.
We also talk about cocaine hippos versus Beth Gators,
Learn how to make some tailgate gravy.
altercations with Texas Rangers.
People throwing Reese's peanut butter cups.
Yeah, so check out grabthebrisket.com for podcast info, viral social media posts, and so much more.
Whoop, whoop.
Time to get to the third quarter and the second half. We'll talk a little NFL draft here because it's coming up next Thursday. And by the way, as a scheduling programming note for you all, this show is going to switch from 2 shows a week to 1 show a week. Just given, again, the content. And unless you want us breaking down the NBA playoffs with whatever Big Ten alum is. So that answers your question. So we're going to be a once a week show. We're looking at Fridays.
Fridays, 9 a.m.
Perfect. So we're very much excited about that. But the point being related to the NFL draft, the first round will be gone the next time we talk to you next week. So
we'll be able to see how bad these mock drafts were or if they were on point.
Well, and it's interesting to me too, because I was reviewing and analyzing some of those mock drafts the last week. I feel like normally by now we have a little bit more clarity to the high end of the draft and what ends up happening. And right now, I mean, the mock drafts are not on the same page. Like there is a lot of kind of ambiguity at the top end.
Well, I'm looking at CBS's first round mock draft, and I've seen on ESPN, Todd McShay and Mel Kiper's their mock draft. This doesn't match a lot. Mel Kiper's got, I think, 3 quarterbacks in the top 4 picks, and then Todd McShay is similar. This one has 2 quarterbacks in the top 4 picks, and only one of them is where I expected. So and the thing is they're both really well reputable mock draft places to get, and so you're right. I mean, I've seen Bryce Young being at the top by most. They assume that's why Carolina made that trade.
So I was going to say, I think maybe just for a little bit of context, I do believe mock draft experts have been disagreeing who goes 1 or 2, but I think we know who's going 1 and 2. Like it's going to be Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, but I think they just argue about which
CBS
one
doesn't have that.
Really?
CBS,
who do they have?
I'll give you CBS's top. I'll take you all the way down to CJ Stroud. And yes, I said down to CJ Stroud. You have Bryce Young at Carolina, Will Anderson with the Texans.
Okay.
Tyree Wilson, the edge rusher from Texas Tech for Arizona. Will Levis for the Colts.
Okay.
Jalen Carter from Georgia going to Seattle. Devin Witherspoon from Illinois, cornerback, going to Detroit. Peter Skoronsky, the
correct.
offensive tackle from Northwestern. Going to Las Vegas. Christian Gonzalez from Oregon going to Atlanta. Drew Sanders, linebacker from Arkansas, going to Chicago. Yes, I'm still going. Brian Branch, the safety from Alabama, to Philadelphia. CJ Stroud to Tennessee. Why would Tennessee be the one that they think is going to take? Didn't they take a quarterback last year that was very high profile and they were saying he was going to be the next one after Tannehill?
Well, what number is that?
11. They're not
Like-
taking in any consideration of trades on draft day, I'm guessing too.
Well, and my thing is like, look, this is who CBS is.
CBS, yep.
I mean, God bless it if it ends up being correct, because like this is the zag to everybody's zig. Like
Will Brinson.
This is projecting or predicting, like if you went back 20 years ago, Aaron Rodgers dropping 20-some picks in the NFL draft. Like this is what they're doing on the front end, saying is going to happen with CJ Stroud, because most experts say Stroud is either 1 or 2 in the draft.
Honestly, out of the two, I would take Stroud over Young. That's me personally, but it's probably because I'm exposed to him more often in what we cover.
Well, I was going to say, what sticks out to you about Stroud?
He reminds me of Justin Fields and his ability to be on the move, but yet still throw the ball accurately, still do. And I know Bryce Young does that as well, but I just, for some reason, of the two, I like Stroud's game better than I do Young's. And honestly, I think that kind of falls into line with what you were saying, to where everybody kind of agrees that they're the top two. It's just which one goes first.
Yeah.
So it's more of a personal preference, and I don't know if it's because I've watched way more CJ Stroud in the last year than I have Bryce Young. That could be the reason. They're both excellent players.
It's interesting because I mentioned that we talked earlier with Joshua Perry, and Joshua, I'd asked him about, Ohio State and quarterback situation. And there is a narrative that exists out there that Ohio State quarterbacks can't have success in the NFL when you go through the last 20 years. And I mean, you go through the names: Troy Smith.
No, you're not incorrect.
Braxton Miller, JT Barrett, Dwayne Haskins, which unfortunately Dwayne Haskins, like, we didn't really get to see the story fully play out because of the tragic passing. Cardale Jones. I mean, you go through this list. And so I kind of posed that question to him, and he responded saying, I think if you really want to break it down and get to like what's going on here, if there is a common denominator, you look at it by coaching eras. Early on with Jim Tressel, you get the Troy Smith and
Craig
Terrell Pryor. Yeah. Like if
he won a national championship, mister.
He did. I'm not disrespecting the name. But like it's a certain mold. And then you get to the Urban Meyer days and you get to JT Barrett, Haskins. It was a different kind of quarterback. Now under Ryan Day, you've seen Stroud and Justin Fields, who are their own mold. And out of those Ohio State quarterbacks, Fields has been the most successful so far in the NFL. What he's doing with Chicago.
So far. And
yeah.
And the thing is he did that with a team that was essentially second and third teamers, basically, on other rosters, filling a roster so they could just ride out the storm until all these draft picks that they had finally, they get their draft picks back from ones that they've made trades for. The Khalil Mack trade, they traded I think 3 number ones for that.
Mm-hmm.
They're finally out from under that, so they're getting their picks finally. And I think what Justin Fields did with a roster that wasn't really built to win, and he still broke records like he did. I think you could say he's set the bar very high, and I don't anticipate him passing under it by a lot. He might pass under it, but it's going to be very close to that bar that he's already set.
And he stayed healthy. I mean, given for last year,
for the most part, he did have a shoulder injury, but it was a minor shoulder injury and stuff. So I mean,
as much as he was running, though, like he was running at the most out of running quarterbacks. Like he was constantly on the move.
He's the first quarterback in NFL history to I think have 3 straight 100-yard rushing games. Like that does a couple of things. That says what they have surrounding him and what he's capable of doing. So I think Justin Fields I think you're right. And I think that Stroud is very much like him, maybe better, maybe not quite as good, but they're both on par with one another. That's why I think I like Stroud a little bit more, because I've seen him play, and I've also seen Justin Fields play a lot. I'm a Bears fan.
So maybe there's something to the Ryan Day Buckeye quarterbacks that translates better to the NFL than what previous regimes have been able to do.
Or maybe it's a smokescreen. And in 2 years, he's not very good. And I'm not saying he's going to be like that, or either one of them will be, because you just don't know until they get into the league and actually start getting plays under their belts.
Yep.
But let's just say right now, the jury's still out on Justin Fields, but I think there's more saying there's some good look rather than I'm not really sure about him.
Yeah.
The upside is much greater now than it was with Craig Krenzel, or whatever. Nobody was drafting Craig Krenzel in the first round. Now they are drafting those Ohio State quarterbacks there. So yeah.
It's interesting. We'll kind of keep paying attention to how this all plays out next week. But we will mention real quick too before we take our final break, just to set up a promotion before we get out of here. Ohio State is wide receiver university at this point. Like I think it's hard to think in the last few years of a university that's pumping out better talent at that position than what Ohio State is, given Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson being drafted high in the first round last year, given we're going to see Jackson Smith and Jigba come off the board as
and their
many
best
experts
receiver
think.
still is at Ohio State.
Marvin Harrison. I was going to say, that's the thing. We're not even talking about Jackson Smith and Jigba anymore because we've gotten so infatuated with Marvin Harrison Jr. and rightfully so.
Had Njigba not been injured last year, we might not have been talking as much about Marvin Harrison Jr., but he's still the better of the receivers.
He's a freak.
It's amazing to see him doing what he's doing, and he's not even getting the pub. Now he will. Now he is going to be the guy. But going into last year, they were like, Jackson Smith and Jigba. Don't forget Marvin Harrison Jr. Now he's the guy,
Yep.
And I was looking at this CBS mock draft round 1. 8 of the 32 draftees are projected to be Big Ten players.
Isn't that something? I mean, the Big Ten really, I noticed that too when I was combing through the mock drafts. The Big Ten influence they're expecting for the first round is pretty monumental.
Yeah.
The Big Ten's producing some pretty big talent for the next level, at least this year. This feels better represented than what some of the other years have been in the past for the Big Ten.
Yeah. And that's just it is half the teams of the Final Four were Big Ten teams. Oh, that was just a fluke. Ohio State backed into it. Blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter. Half of them were Big Ten, and neither of them won. But at the same time, but yet, more than just Michigan. I didn't see one Michigan name in that. It was all Ohio State, mostly Ohio State. I think there were 3 Ohio State, and then the rest were other Big Ten teams. But
Iowa, Northwestern, Illinois. I'm trying to think who else is projected.
There was a Maryland.
Joey Porter Jr. from Penn State.
Yep. Maryland guy. I forget his name, but
was it a receiver? I'll look for it while you finish your point.
My whole point is there's a lot that is NFL talent, even though that maybe they went to a program that didn't do much in the conference. They're still making that conference a better conference, even though they're on a team that's not necessarily competing for division titles. But it's just the Big Ten, while they don't dominate and win every year the national championship or even get to the national championship game, they're one of the better conferences. And anybody that says anything different and the Big Ten can't win, it doesn't matter. They're still one of the better conferences. Don't say that they're not just because they're not winning. Deontay Banks.
Yep, I just found that too.
Cornerback
from Maryland.
Yep. So it's tough to defend because they don't win national championships, but at the same time, it is defendable. The strength of the conference that, it just, I don't know.
It just takes a little bit of nuance. It's not a very hot takey conversation to defend the Big Ten, both in football and men's basketball. But if you're willing to listen, there's plenty of reason to believe the Big Ten is right up there among the very best, kind of as we're talking about there. And by the way, I just pulled up the CBS mock draft done by Jonathan Jones, and he's got Stroud at 2. So CBS is disagreeing within their office a little bit.
Well, I wonder. I read the headline to this, and it said mock draft 2023 NFL mock draft, and this was yesterday when it came out. CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson fall below the top 3. Defenders go first 5 picks. what if quarterbacks fall in the draft? It's still hard to pull off, but it can happen. It was the under.
Okay.
The
So
sub headline.
we'll kind of see how this ends up playing out next week when we end up talking about it during the next episode of Big Talk. But for now, let's go ahead and hit that fourth quarter.
Fourth quarter. Wrong button.
Hey,
get these things not looking alike in their clip pictures. That'll get a better way of hitting it.
Get ready to hit that button because after our outro music,
that'll be very soon. Yes.
We are closing up shop here in just like a minute. All we got time for is to promote where to find us. So, Sam, before you cut yourself off, go ahead and get your promos in.
Good Lord. Yeah. Instagram and Twitter. Go to at B1G _talk big talk. You'll find us there on those social media avenues. Hit us up there. If you want to go to Facebook, Big Talk, B1G Talk, type that in and it'll take you to our profile. We're on oddpodsmedia.com. Every time we have an episode come out, we are on their website. Feel free to hit us up there and find out all the rest of the ones, rest of the shows there in the network. We're on ASAP. It says twice a week. I haven't changed the graphic yet. But we are on there every time we stream. So for the rest of this spring/summer until we get into full swing with football, it will be once a week on Fridays at 9 a.m. But we are on the ASAP network. You can get the app there at the Google Play Store or at the Apple Store, the App Store.
App Store.
Okay.
You got it.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I remember when the App Store first came to fruition, and I was driving a truck for my work, and I would listen to Colin Cowherd all the time on ESPN when he was with them. And he said his wife asked him, they were talking about something that, an app of some sort. And his wife said, just go to the App Store. So he looked up the address for the App Store because he didn't know what it was. So now it makes complete and utter sense. But I don't have an Apple device, so I don't know the official. I know it's Google Play for Android. So
yeah, well, you had it right. App Store. It's
the App Store. Well,
the
Apple Store. Just take off the last part, and it's the App Store. That's
look at that. We are on it.
Use
today.
Devices to help you remember things.
All right. Again, thank you so much for tuning in for another edition of Big Talk. Glad to be with you, and can't wait until next Friday. For Sam Sprunger and myself, Dalton Shetler. So long. Have a great weekend.
Hit the outro button. See ya.